Episode 37 of Ego and Vice starts right now.
You've got a real attitude problem, McFly. You're a slacker.
Babadoo zip zap dap boobala boodala zabadooish we are. Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Mike. This is episode 37. This is Ego and Vice. I'm sitting in the luxurious, the succulent, if you will, Southwood studio. Just killing time. Cool, man. It's really great to be back. How are you guys doing? I'm doing great. As always, I say thanks for asking. Shit, man. What's going on? Shit, I got nothing to say. Fucking should have prepared before I came on. No, I got stuff to say. I think I got stuff to say. I'm doing good. I'm feeling good. Been hitting the gym a lot. And been running again. That's pretty cool. Doing lots of running, actually. Fucking running my ass off. And getting svelte, lean, if you will. Lost a bunch of weight. Not that I had a lot of weight on me, because I'm kind of a short, stout, stocky, punk rockin' fucking superstar. But you can always concentrate if you want to and lose a little inch here and an inch there. And, man, just eating better and trying to hit the gym as much as I can and doing some running, because it really helps with the overall how you feel. Physically, but also mentally. You'd be surprised, you know what I mean? Like what just getting out there and getting a sweat can do for your overall well-being and how you feel about everything. And it's a hell of a natural cure for what ails you. A little anxiety, some depression. We all have that. I have that. Suffer from it for most of my life. Recently professionally diagnosed, which I'm grateful for. But yeah, man, you just gotta eat well, drink a lot of water, get out there, get your blood going, and cut down on the booze. Cut down on the drinking, because that shit is a depressant that you can hammer into your body, and it feels good for the time, but the next day, all that shit that you're trying to avoid or trying to get rid of will hit you like a fucking train. And I don't like feeling like that. So I'm not going to do that anymore. Cool. Well, I started the 30-day no alcohol challenge. I guess I should follow up with that. I think I lasted about 7 days a week. Felt fucking amazing. Absolutely amazing. But then your mind plays tricks on you and said, yay, let's celebrate with a beer. But that's okay. I am really, 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 I've really cut down. And I'm on a good path, I suppose. It's all clarity. You know what I mean? It's crazy. One thing I have learned, I shouldn't even say one thing. I have learned so much about myself over the last maybe 2 months or so. Sometimes you just got to look inward, and you have to take the time and kind of learn who you are again. You know what I mean? Figure out why you do what you do, why you don't like what you like, why you like what you like, stuff like that. But unless you take the time to fucking just sit there and really concentrate on it and put a lot of work into yourself, you just kind of float. You know what I mean? You do the same old shit. You get stuck in the same old routines, and it's dangerous. You know what I mean? And before you know it, it's like years later, and you're just still stuck in the same bullshit. And what I've learned in the last 2 months has changed like my head so much, and I have such a like a bright outlook on life itself, on friendship, on people. I know what's bad and good. I know what I'm capable of. I know what I can resist, and I know what always fucking dragged me down. You know what I mean? And I'm super happy to be where I'm at right now, to have found a place where I'm good. You know, I can manage it all really, really well. I don't have to overwhelm myself and just bombard myself with, you know, a zillion things on my plate at one time and just go, because really it's all distractions from shit that is bothering you, or shit that's always bothered you. So, yeah, man. My advice to anybody, if you want to take it, is if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling shitty, if you're feeling like you look in the mirror and you say, what the fuck is going on in my life? Slow down, take a deep breath, find some friends, some family, people that you can talk to, and just, you know, chip away at all the shit that's built up and start at the bottom again and build it back up. And it's incredible what you can do if you put your mind to something. And I know that's cliche, but it's incredible. You go into things with the right mindset, and your life will change, just because you will see, you know, what you will take a really hard look at everything. And a big thing is, have friends and family, like I said, but don't rely on other people to fix you or to save you or to make everything go away, because that is a recipe for destruction. The only person that can fix you is the one you're looking at in that mirror. And you come out, it's like I always think of the Shawshank Redemption. He crawled through shit, and he came out clean on the other side. And I'm a work in progress, but god damn do I feel better than I fucking have in a long time. And I feel like I know myself again. I'm starting to feel like the person I used to be so long ago. And I have regrets, I have happiness, I have sadness, but that's all part of life, right? But you can't let that shit weigh you down. Just fucking be the best you can be. And if you don't know who that is, take your time and find that person. Fuck, see? This is what I've been going through. This is what goes through my brain every day, and I'm happy that it does. Because fucking rights, man. The sun's going to come out tomorrow, and who knows, man. Just take your time. Okay. Enough about me. I'm good. Goat is good. Still writing the record. We have 6 songs. We go into the studio June 24th, recording the new Goat record, and I cannot fucking wait. These songs are fucking, I'm super proud of them. They really, really encapsulate this time period of what I've been, you know, of everything that's been happening in my life over the last maybe 2 months, 3 months. These songs just came out, and nothing creates creativity like intense emotional baggage. It's true, though. It's amazing, because I'm super happy with the songs. And anyway, so yeah, man, look forward to that, or don't, whatever. But it's coming at you anyway. And anyway, let's get to the matter at hand, which is episode 37 of Ego and Vice. Cool, man. I have a guest in the studio. He was in a couple days ago. As you know, I always do the interviews, and then I'll do the intro after, just because it just, you know, I'm lazy, I guess. I have Jeff Czuba from the Riptides, from the PG-13s, and man, all around cool rock and roll dude, punk rocker. He came in and he sat down and we had a conversation. It's a long one, but it's a good one. A lot of history, a lot of present, and hopefully some future. I've been enjoying playing with Jeff, Bull Tit. Let's just call him Bull Tit. You don't need to ask. If you know Jeff, he's the fucking Bull Tit. But I've been enjoying playing with him in the Riptides for the last like 3-4 months, and we're becoming fast friends because he's a really likable dude, and so am I. So it's like a match made in heaven. Anyway, like I said, we have a great conversation, and you know, fuck it. enough about me. Let's get to it. I'm going to play a song. Let me play a song from the Riptides. I abuse the Riptides on this podcast because I love their music. Plus, they're good guys. So I'm going to play a song from the Riptides. After the Riptides, we're going to come back in with my conversation with Bolthead himself. We'll see you on the other side.
Beam me up, take me far from here. Beam me up, my mission's no longer clear, 'cause I don't wanna see you crying as I head to outer space. But I just can't keep lying and pretend I get this place anymore. Beam me up, get me off this rock. Beam me up, I'll hang with Mr. Spock, because everything they're saying makes me want to shake my head. The politics they're playing makes me fear the road ahead. Beam me up and take me far from here. Ooh baby, beam me up and take me away from here. Cause I don't wanna see you crying as I head to outer space. But I just can't keep lying and pretend I get this place. Beam me up and take me far from here. Ooh baby, beam me up and take me away from here. Beam me up and take me far from here. Beam me up and take me far from here. Beam me up and take me far from here. Beam me up and take me away from here.
Hey, welcome back. This is episode 37 of Ego and Vice. My name is Mike, as I've said so many times, and this is the South Hood Studio, and you never know who's going to drop by. And the one man that did was Mr. Jeff Czuba, Mr. Bolthead.
Thank you.
What's going on, Jeff?
Not much. How you doing?
I'm well, man. I'm super good. You know, the sun is shining. It's a brand new day. Who knew?
A beautiful day too, man. Crazy hot today.
Yeah, it was a lovely day. I had to work most of the day, but, you know, you got to bring in the money because you have to fucking pay for the surroundings. I've heard that money helps you buy goods and services.
I have also heard this. I have experienced a little bit of it as well.
You've purchased many goods and services?
I've purchased some goods and services.
Cool, man.
But yeah, you know, it's I also had to work today. I have a feeling you probably spent a little bit of time outside. See, I have the luxury of sitting in an office all day where it's air conditioned and climate controlled.
Well, they know that's nice. You know what I mean? Like you have like the fake comfort. That's fine. I was outside for a bit. I had a security call because I'm a subcontractor and I install security systems. Wow, that's something I've never said on Ego and Vice before. So boom, outside, you guys think that I just play music and do podcasts all for like 24/7, but I don't. I actually have a day job. I'm actually a subcontractor. Technically, I work for myself, but I install security systems. And I was outside today, and I had one call, and me and my partner, we teamed up on it. So we were outside just killing time. You know, the job probably should have only taken 4 hours. We stretched it out to about 10. It was nice. We were sitting down. We ate a sandwich. We had some soup. I don't know why you eat soup on a like plus 40 day, but anyway. Enough about the real world. Let's talk about the fake world that we live in. The fucking rad world that we live in. The way I know Jeff, when we met, he plays drums in the you play drums in the Riptides right now.
That is correct.
So when I was asked to join the Riptides, or actually try out for the Riptides, I came in, and that's when you and I first met. But you have a storied history in music. I've heard some stuff, even though like we're buds now. I don't know a ton about your history. I've heard Andy talk about back when you used to tour with the Queers. I've heard about the PG-13s, a band that you were in, which you've brought me 2 lovely T-shirts. But I would love to just kind of start at the beginning of when you started playing music, like where you're from, like what the fuck's going on?
So the very beginning, I was born here in Ottawa at the Grace Hospital, July 1st, 1981. So I am a Canada Day baby.
Oh, very congratulations.
Thank you.
And a birthday coming up.
A birthday coming up, yes. The day after actually the Rip Fest here in Ottawa will be my birthday bash as well.
We'll get to that.
But yes, we will talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, so I was born here in Ottawa, lived in Blackburn Hamlet when I was, this back in 1981.
The Hammer.
When that was basically the middle of nowhere. But before I was a year old, we moved up to Timmins. My dad's originally from Kirkland Lake in Northern Ontario, so it was to kind of be a little bit closer to his family. We lived there for 10 years or 9 or so years. When I was 10 years old, we moved to Rockland, so just east of Ottawa. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where I grew up. And I've always kind of been into music. You know, my parents always had records lying around, much like Andy. The Beach Boys were kind of always one of those records that I always kind of gravitated to. And, music has, I think, always kind of been a part. And even like subconsciously, it's weird. I know the lyrics to all these songs from the 80s that I would have been like 3 or 4 when they came out. But, just from being around, or I remember stuff that I haven't, don't really remember listening to. But yeah, and so that kind of turned, I guess finding kind of punk rock was really what made me think that like, maybe I can play music, And so really, my gateway to punk rock was, I was a skateboarder, skater. And in those days, a lot of guys listened to a lot of punk rock. And so I was introduced to Pennywise, About Time, and NoFX, Punk and Drublic.
Well, great record.
Both amazing records. And that kind of, sunk its teeth in a little bit. And then right around that time, or, within the next year or so, I think Green Day like really broke huge with Dookie.
It's amazing. It's amazing how many people I've done 37 episodes of this podcast, and most of the people that have been on this podcast are my peers. Some people in my age group who've come up the same way I have. And it's incredible how many times when Dookie dropped in 1994, how many lives that changed. And you just said it again, and it's just like it changed my life too. Like I have a goddamn Green Day tattoo. Yep. It's not my fault. But before I have to ask you this because it's like gnawing at me. Before we move on with your story, when you lived in Timmins, did you know the Twains?
We did not know the Twains.
Okay.
My dad was very involved. My dad was a hockey referee, so we were very involved in the hockey community. Yeah. So maybe a couple famous hockey players I crossed paths with when I was young. But no, unfortunately, I never had the pleasure
of meeting the Twains.
Of meeting the Twains, particularly Shania. I know, of course, I would have been a little young to head out to I think it was the Maple Leaf Tavern or the Maple Leaf Bar or something that she used to sing at, where she kind of got her start, I believe.
Excellent. But I had to ask.
Sorry, I digress.
We digress. I had to ask that. Just as soon as you say Timmins and like you grew up there, I'm like, that'd be a great name for a record, like Dinner with the Twains. But anyway, when Dookie dropped, so you said you were kind of like discovering punk rock. I've never been a big Pennywise fan. Love NoFX, even after the Las Vegas fiasco thing. Well, we can talk about that afterwards. But so when around that time, you said, were you playing an instrument at that time?
I was not. So around that time, it would have been probably, I think, around grade 8, because I remember I had a buddy of mine who did play the guitar, and we had some kind of school assembly where people were doing kind of different kind of performance stuff, and so he played the guitar, and I still remember. I think he played like Glycerine by Bush and
Bush X here in Canada.
That's right. No. And then Basket Case by Green Day, and so I think that's through him. I seem to remember like that's where I kind of first mess it like, oh, cool. Like, he'd let me show me a couple little things on his guitar. And then that, I probably got my first guitar around that time. I seem to remember, buying some insanely cheap Les Paul imitation.
Like my guitar.
From a friend. No, I mean this
Oh, real cheap.
Oh yeah,
like the Linko or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even remember what brand. It was probably not some like an actual brand. Wade was probably made of like solid plot. Like, or it was weighed 40 pounds. Was just sounded like crap.
Came in a cardboard box from the Triangle cardboard box.
Actually, bought it from a friend.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
And that's kind of a theme, I think, a lot for a lot of my early musical equipment acquisitions.
Came with a handshake.
Yeah. So it was, so bought it from someone who, a buddy who had it who didn't want to play guitar anymore. And, kind of tried to learn stuff and, basically just bar chords and power chords and that kind of stuff, which is basically still all I play at this point.
Well, I didn't even realize there were more chords than power chords. What are you talking about?
I know. I think I know 3 chords, and that's only so I can play Good Riddance, Time of Your Life.
Well, realistically, if you know how to do a power chord, you know all the chords.
Oh, there you go.
It's true. Because if you can do a power chord, you can play all the chords. Yeah. So you actually started as a guitar player, want to be a guitar player. Do you still play guitar?
I do.
Okay.
Not as often as I probably should. I kind of go through like kind of peaks and valleys. I had a point a couple months ago where I was playing a lot, and having my son has kind of made me want to do that a little bit more. I'll just kind of walk around with my guitar and make up kind of funny little songs and stuff. That's one of the things about pop punk. I think Rob from the Riptides and I have talked about that a lot. Is it's very easy to kind of do pop punk and turn it into a kid's song.
Yes.
Right? It's just basic lyrics, observational kind of.
I agree. No, for sure. If you take like a G and a D and a C and you put them in the right combination with some sweet, little, like a good melody, it's the foundation of every song that's ever written, really. And you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
So that's cool, man. So you played guitar. You started playing guitar. You had your knockoff Linko Les Paul.
Yeah, whatever it was.
It was Les with a Z, maybe Les Paul. Anyway, but when did you say, hey, you know what? I'm sure you already played guitar, but when did you start drumming? What was that all about?
I've actually only been drumming for I think about 9 years now. So since about 2009.
Well, that's a good stretch. 9 years. That's like a decade.
But so, yeah. I mean, but in hindsight, I started playing guitar probably like 94, 95. And that actually led to, about 14 or 15, had my first band with a couple.
That was my next question.
Couple buddies. Yeah. So, so the first band, but probably, like I said, 14, 15 years old, called Downtime with 2 of my buddies from home, Mike LeBlanc and Graham Burnt. Rest in peace, buddy. So, just kind of writing punk rock songs,
And you were the guitar player singer in that band? Or?
I was the guitar player. Graham was going to be the singer, but he couldn't sing and play bass at the same time.
Okay.
So thus began my journey as a bass player.
Oh, shit. So this is a whole different chapter. All right.
We go right into... So I switched over and played bass in that band. Again, we were 14, 15, mostly just, playing cover songs, writing the odd song in a garage,
And how old were you? 14, 15? Okay, sorry.
So maybe we played 1, maybe 2 shows. I remember playing a show, it's Vincent Massey Park, just some, afternoon 15 bands, kind of thing.
Right, you latch onto something that would let you have some attention or some spotlight.
Yeah, and then I remember we played a show in Rockland actually that we put on like a benefit. We had a skate park in Rockland, know, and so we did that. So those are probably the only 2 shows, and then that kind of fizzled out. Honestly, I can't. People kind of separate or whatever. I honestly don't remember why we kind of stopped hanging out together, but for whatever reason we did, and so. So I really focused more on just playing bass, But for the next really, geez, probably close to like almost 10 years, it was basically just, playing bass by myself along to stuff and, putting a record on and kind of learning stuff. And, the odd time I'd play with someone, but, I really didn't, I didn't play in another band or really play with anybody regularly until the PG-13s, but that's jumping a little bit ahead.
Yeah, it's a little ways ahead.
So we'll dial it back a little bit, but yeah. So
well, I think everyone goes through a certain period, because I remember when I started my first band. Well, I didn't even start the band. I actually fell into the band because I loved music. I listened to music, but I never played anything. And a friend of mine bought this drum kit off his buddy. This crappy drum. It was this whatever Linko drum kit or some whatever. And my other friend had a guitar that he borrowed off his brother, and we plugged it into his like parents' stereo, like into the input or the output, and blew the speakers. And and I didn't play anything, so I just sang, and I sang like crappy, like I sang like Rattle and Hum, like Streets of Angel of Harlem, poorly, right? So it's funny when you get into bands and you kind of like you cut your teeth and you get into bands which you think at the time are like great, but in retrospect you look back and like, wow, man, that was just a young band, really crappy band. And there's tons of time in between where it's just like I can't even recall, where it's just like, yeah, I want to be in a band, but I'm not in a band for a bunch of years. Even before like Goat started, I was out of a band for maybe 3 or 4 years while I really did nothing. You know what I mean? There was this like a lot of time where you don't really do anything. There's a lot of downtime, but I find that those are the times where if you're still playing, you kind of discover like how to play more, or you start writing songs. And I have a ton of songs from those times, those like quiet times that I still always want to bring back. But once in a while, I'll like bust out and play and stuff like that. Did you ever write like a lot of songs? Are you a songwriter?
I did, but later on, and mostly. I guess I did. I did a little bit later on, and I think that was part of the impetus that led to wanting to start the PG-13s, or part of it, anyways. But yeah. So even though I had the break, I guess I was still around music, and I was still kind of involved in stuff, right? So at that point, again, 14, 15 years old, going to as many shows as I can. And in 1997, so I'd have been around 16 years old, I met the guys from a band called Unemployed. Mm-hmm. And, they were probably, in their late teens, probably early 20s, maybe 20, 21. And they kind of took me under their wing. And so that was kind of where I kind of guess became their merch guy / roadie / I did their website, some like shitty GeoCities website in the early days of the interweb. And they just kind of let me hang around and tag around with them. And through that, I got to meet Muriel, who ran Swish Productions back in the day, who put on all the shows. And so by getting to know her, and again, because I lived out in Rockland, a lot of times I'd just get my mom to kind of drive me into town wherever, or drive me into Orleans. I'd catch a bus in. I'd show up to shows like really early, and I just kind of started asking if she needed help or to do anything or setting up. And so through that, I got to meet a lot of like cool people. One of the ones that sticks out in particular is like Russ Rankin from Good Riddance. Okay. I got to meet Russ a couple times, and was always just a cool dude, big hockey fan. So we always kind of had that in common whenever it would come up. And I seem to remember him being up at least 1 year after his New Jersey Devils had won the Stanley Cup. So he was particularly happy that year. But, and again, just kind of being around bands, and, when Unemployed they would open up for a lot of stuff, bigger bands when they would roll through. So I got to kind of hang out and meet a lot of people, and some of the people that I met actually, August of 1998, helping out Muriel at a show early at the Dominion Tavern. Queers and the Nobodies are in town. Right. And, that's kind of how, so that's where I met Joe Queer for the first time. And
yeah, that was some stories I've heard, just kind of like being at band practice and that. And I knew you were in the PG-13s, and then you started I think Andy or Bob started just referencing stories about that they met you when you were touring with the Queers, but you were, and don't get me wrong, like if you love the Ottawa music scene or if you love music in general, there's nothing, like it's awesome to play in a band, but there's nothing wrong to be involved in the scene either. At that, you know, if you find yourself a musician and you can get affiliated with bands and stuff like that, just stay involved if that's what you love to do, and that's rad. And you met the Queers in that period of your life.
Yeah. And so it would have been August of 98. So I would have been 17 years old. And, they show up, they load in, everything's good. They've got some time to kill. They want to go walk around. Who's going to show, Jeff, you want to go show the Queers around Ottawa? So, okay. 17-year-old me.
Where'd you take them?
We just
Get 'em
walked
a
around
beaver tail?
and went to the Rito Center, I'm sure. And, it was where does a 17-year-old hang out? Like downtown and where the crust bunks are.
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of took them around the market from what I remember and just kind of ended up hanging out most of the night, and so yeah, I just remember at the end of the night, Joe kind of saying, giving me his address and the other PO box and like, shoot us a line sometime, and yeah, want to hear from you. So, a few months later, sent him a letter, just kind of checking up and seeing what's up, and got a letter back and, sent me his phone number, and we just kind of started chatting. And, I remember one of the first times I called him, he answered the phone and I could tell something was weird, and he had actually just flown back from Europe, because that was when Hugh died.
Oh, okay.
And so that was kind of a weird conversation. But and anyway, so I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, so anyways, talked to him a few times, and kind of, he floated, we might, we're going out in the summer, on tour, and we're going to need a roadie. So would you be interested in doing it? You'd just have to do, you just have to do merch stuff. We have this other guy, Jeff Useless, who does the kind of gear side. And for anyone who's out there who is also a pop punk fan, Jeff Useless, of course, from the Guts, the Useless Fucks, in the Connection now, who are doing absolutely huge things, and a bunch of other amazing products.
Sure.
Jeff stuff's Little Steven plays. There's whatever 6 different projects he's got, but
Right.
But yeah, and so we kind of talked about that. And, after Hugh died, a couple months later, Joe's dad died.
Oh.
And so at that point, Joe kind of dropped off.
Okay.
So I didn't hear from Joe for a while. And so again, this is probably June or July. In October, early October of that year, the Nobodies are in town, and Jeff Useless is playing guitar for them.
Oh, shit.
So I go over and introduce myself and say, hey, my name's Jeff too. Joe had been talking to me about, maybe doing that tour in the summer, but, with you, but I guess that didn't happen. And he says, oh, well, they're going out in 3 weeks. And he just called me today to ask if I could go out, but I can't do it because I'm on tour.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, we'll give you the number for Hopeless. Call Hopeless, leave a message. Joe calls and checks his messages, every few days.
Yeah.
And, whatever.
Wow.
So this was, I think the show was on a Friday night. So Monday morning, Monday morning Ottawa time, which is probably the middle of the night in California.
Yeah.
I call and leave a message, just, 18-year-old kid, hey, it's Jeff from Ottawa calling for Joe Queer. I heard that, they're going out on tour. They might, something tell them to give me a call. And yeah, so later that day, this is the days of dial-up internet. So, I'm doing whatever on the internet, and I still remember logging off, and, the message on, you hear, check the phone.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I get that.
yeah.
Oh, someone left a message.
Get that squawky. Okay, anyway.
And so check the message, and yeah, it's Joe Queer, and he just, hey, it's Joe. We're going out from like October 31st to November, whatever. Tour's yours if you want it.
Fucking hell. There
Now,
it is.
keep in mind, I am 18 years old.
Right.
Like 3 months past turning 18. I've just finished high school, and this is amazing. So, but the first thing I'm thinking is like, oh, my parents going to let me do this. And luckily, when I approached my parents, their response was, well, you're 18, so you can pretty much
Do what the fuck you want.
do what you
sir.
want. Be careful. You're going to have to, call us and check
Wear
in.
a condom.
But thus began, the phase, I guess, of my, I'll still call it my musical career because it was
Sure,
still
man.
in
Absolutely.
the biz, if you will,
Show business.
or the industry.
Sure.
But yeah, so that kind of phase that took me through, let's see, PG-13 started, I think. Sorry, I'm going to have to check my phone. I made notes of this because I'm like horrible with dates, but it was around 2004, 2005.
Okay.
So that would put me at like 23. So that would probably be about, the next like 5 or 6 years of my life where I really, not really, I wasn't out all the time, but I did do, a few things. So I did that first tour in the fall of 99, but then in the summer of 2000, I moved to Toronto to go to school. So I went to Humber College in Toronto for 2 years in radio broadcasting.
Mm-hmm.
Go figure. But, still kind of managed to squeeze some stuff in. So, in February of 2001, I took a week off school and did 5 days, London, Toronto, here, which was the show where I introduced the Riptides to Joe Queer.
Right. When Andy was on the show, he had mentioned that his apex of success at the point of like the Riptides at that point was just I just want to meet Joe Queer.
Yeah.
Or I just want to play with the queers. And then this is the crossroads right here. This is where it all happened. So shit, man.
But yeah, so, and then, Montreal and Quebec City, and then I go back to school, and I can confirm PG-13 was 2006, so 25. So this roadie phase lasted like 7 years. Solid
Was
7
it
years.
primarily with the queers that you would travel with, or
That
it
was
you were just like a
exclusively.
gun for hire, or
No, exclusive. I
Oh,
just
wow.
do stuff with them. So again, like I did that first tour in the fall of 99, and I don't think they did anything. I think they might have been recording. But then I ended up going to school. So obviously I was a little tied up. So I did, that 1 week, in 2001, and I didn't do any, I did a couple shows with them like the summer between my first and second year of school. So the summer of 2001, and actually, really fun shows. It was like the anti-warp tour or something, but, Rochester,
amen, brother.
Rochester and Albany, New York with the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones.
Oh, sweet, man.
Awesome dudes. Yeah, couldn't have, had more fun. So got to do that. I didn't do anything with the Queers my second year of school, but I did see the Riptides roll through. And
They're a bunch of bums.
and I think Andy might have briefly mentioned this show, but I don't think, if I remember correctly, that all the details were there. So my second year of school, after I've introduced them, and I think I had got them to send all their stuff, they roll through Toronto on September 12th, 2001.
I've been noticing over the course of the podcast, dude, you're a stickler for details, dude. Like, these dates. That's fucked, man.
I may have done a little prep today. And
Oh, did ya?
Just some research.
Oh, you totally let me down right
yeah.
there.
No, I'm
Anyway.
sorry. But I am a stickler for detail. That's why
Okay.
I do the prep. But yeah, so September 12th, 2001, the day after September 11th, the Riptides come and play or roll through Toronto with Moral Crux and an opening band called the Kamikaze Bombers from Japan.
Well, hey, man, I'm
So very apropos,
very.
timing wise, depending on your sense of humor.
I was just thinking I'm half Japanese, so I was like, okay,
Yeah.
you got me back. Yeah.
And we're looking at this on the day after September 11th going like, Kamikaze Bombers. I don't know if that's and it turned out they were actually like, I'm like, is that kind of thing you could get away with even like, well, we're actually from Japan. It's like, I guess.
All right.
Kind of.
So the Riptides have entered the picture.
Yes.
The Queers are very much in the picture.
Yep.
Let's play a song, and I think what would be apropos at this point, at this juncture, let's play a Queers song. What do you want to hear? Anything you want.
Man, that is like such a tall order to pick like just one. But I guess if I have to pick something, it's going to be something from Love Songs for the Retarded,
Okay.
which is the I think it's the first real kind of Queers record I think on Lookout and the benchmark, if you will. Oh man, I'm trying to think. I will say this song because I really like playing it. And so we're going to listen to Monster Zero by the Queers.
Okay, cool, man. Bolt Hit is in the studio, my friends. This is Ego and Vice. This is episode 37. And this is the Queers. This is a song called Monster Zero. Cool. This is Ego and Vice. So at this point, you were the roadie for the Queers exclusively.
Yes.
You were still doing stuff, other stuff in the music scene, and you knew the Riptides. So, is this where the PG-13s started grinding their gears, or what?
No, the PG-13s were still a couple years down the road. So
okay. So what happened in this era?
So in 2002, so spring of 2002, I graduated from Humber College, radio broadcasting, and I was working an internship at what was the Team 1050 back then, so sports radio, and was kind of just putting around doing my internship and kind of trying to get a job, and actually had a job lined up, but before the job got lined up, I actually was offered the opportunity to go to Europe with the Queers. So it was I think about 5 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks, maybe 4 weeks with like the extra weekend or something in Europe.
It's a long stretch.
And on top of that, so we did that, and then we came back and did 10 days US and Canada. So kind of told the station that I'd take the job, but I'd start after I came back from Europe, and kind of figured that would be my last hurrah. And then, a few weeks before I left to go to Europe with the Queers, I worked a retail job because my internship didn't pay. And I went into my retail job listening to sports radio and came out and heard oldies. So thought that was a little odd. Called one of my buddies from the station and was basically told that they'd flipped the format as regularly happens in radio, and basically everybody got fired.
Sports radio? So this was like AM?
Yeah.
AM radio?
AM 1050.
Glorious.
So it was kind of the forebear.
High quadraphonic sound right there.
Yeah, it was kind of the first crack at where they tried to go national. So now it's like TSN radio. They're kind of all over the place. This is kind of the second go around. I think 1050 is back to being a sports radio station. But yeah, so that ended that. I think. Well, he told me that was my first question was what happened, and he said, well, everybody got pulled into a room and got fired today. And my second question was, does that mean I shouldn't come in tomorrow? And that was basically kind of the end of that, and so luckily I had this tour lined up, and yeah, so a couple weeks later hopped on a plane down to Chicago, and then met up with everybody down there, and we flew over to Europe. And
was that your first time over there?
That was my first time over there.
And how was it? Where'd you go? What'd you see?
It was absolutely amazing. So again, think of it in this way. I would have been like 21 years old. So we did 8 countries. We flew into the Netherlands. We also did Belgium, Germany, France, Spain, England, Switzerland, and Italy. And it's all amazing.
How were the crowds?
Crowds were good, kind of hit or miss in some spots, but for the most part, like it was really good. Europe is interesting. At that time anyways, there was a lot of like you'd play shows in like kind of like communist cooperatives and stuff like that. So or like squats and kind of, I guess
Right.
squats would probably be a better way to kind of.
I was gonna ask, like, what are the venues like when you like tour through Europe? Are they like here? I picture them all like Cafe de Cuff or the Dom with like your feet sticking to the floor, shitty little black places, nothing like black walls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
And there are like, it's, I don't even want to say it's like half, but I'd say like maybe like a quarter of the shows, again, depending on where it is. Like certain countries, I think Italy was a lot like that, where it was all more kind of like cooperative kind of stuff, which was always cool. The only time, like I can remember a couple times where it was like, we've arranged sleeping arrangements for you, and it's like a dirty mattress in a room with no heat and no nothing, and kind of like, I think
it's rock and roll, baby.
Think the band's gonna spring for a hotel tonight, which we actually I was lucky enough, and that's kind of one of the things that at least at that point that I always used to say that I was like really lucky, was that I got to skip all the like bullshit sleeping on people's floors parts, although I did get it later on with
Right.
the PG-13s.
Sure.
But I came into working with the queers when they were already well established. But to your question about the venues, like there's a lot of like really cool venues that I remember. I remember like this place called Wild at Heart, I think was the name of it, in Berlin. Really sticks out in my mind. But it's a lot of it is kind of the same stuff you would kind of see over here, except a lot of it is just hella older, like that's the thing. I remember walking around being like, oh my god, look at that cool old building, like what's that? Like that's apartments.
I love dive bars. I love playing in dive bars. I love going in and just looking at the stage, and it's like 4 pallets. You know what I mean? 4 wooden pallets, and I'm like, okay, I can work with this. You get into a bigger club, and it's like, how the fuck am I even gonna do this? Like, it's crazy. So, yeah, man, that's great. I love the smaller dive bars and the smaller clubs and the ones that are just like the ceilings dripping after like 11 o'clock because it's so humid in there and shit like that. I love that. I love that part of the business, if you will.
But yeah, so we did. So I did those like whatever 4 or 5 weeks over in Europe, and then we came back and hooked up with. While the queers lineup on that European tour was Joe and Dangerous Dave, who was around for most of the first few years that I was there, and you had Matt Drastic from the Teen Idols on drums, and Danny Vapid from Screeching Weasel and Sludgeworth and the Methadones at that point. on rhythm guitar. And so when we came back to the States for those 10 days, the States and Canada, we hit the Methadones opening up for us along with the Riptides.
Those fucking guys.
Those fucking guys. And I may be wrong, but I think that was the first time that they played in the States.
Okay. What year you said? You may have
So it would
already
have
said
been
it.
2002. So fall
2002?
2002. This would have been October. Like October 2002. And so while I had been over in Europe, I had, with the whole radio thing going down before I left, kind of had some time to, organize my thoughts a little bit and kind of think about the next move, if you will. And basically I had taken a year off between high school and college, and I was lucky enough that my mom got me a summer job with the RCMP, which got me a security clearance. So that year that I took off, I did like temp work, and I had a top secret clearance. So I never had a problem getting a job.
Can you tell us any secrets?
They never really told me any.
Oh,
I was like, I needed a top secret clearance to clean the building.
That story ended with a dead end.
I know. It wasn't but yeah, so because of that, I could kind of, I spent that year off, I could, was living with my parents, not paying rent or anything. So I'd go work for like a month, make a bunch of money, and then kind of coast for a little bit. I'm like, oh, we're getting a little low on funds, and go back. So I knew I had that kind of option. I could go back to that, or my other option was kind of trying to plug away at radio, maybe, going from small market to small market for the next decade, making, barely enough money, if enough money to survive. And so I made the decision while I was over to come back to Ottawa. And while I had been, we had been on that tour, there was a couple guys that were following the Riptides from Detroit, but one of them was originally from here and was moving back after the tour. His name was Skinner. And so, obviously when you spend 10 days around the same people, you get to know people. And so when I moved back, I spent a few months living with my parents before, while trying to figure out what to do. And so I ended up moving in with those guys in the city. We had this house, 210 Montfort in the Vanier.
Detail guy.
And, kind of like your basic punk house, right? So I lived there. Sean Shameless, so original Riptides, or maybe not original, because I know there's a whole backstory, but
yeah, I was gonna ask, around this time, like with the Riptides, when you met up with the Riptides again, like what were those guys like back then?
They're like the same dudes. Like that's the thing about.
Let's talk about that.
It's like the same. I think we've all. I mean, obviously you change, right? It's been 15 years at this point or so.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just always been the same, like honest, no bullshit. You know where you stand with those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like those guys did a lot for the local scene, man, back in those days. And I don't know if they necessarily get the credit for it. I know Andy talked about like the Kick 'Em While They're Down compilations on stuff. And I mean, I know he mentioned some of the bands, and I know I'm pretty sure he mentioned like Moral Crux and like the Dwarves, and that was just a bunch of dudes here in Ottawa, and even later on through, stuff we'll get on later, but that's not involving me. Like I remember when they were playing with the Dwarves, and they were doing, they were recording stuff for that split they did. It was a split CD they did with the Vapids. And they had gotten, I think that's where Joe sang China Doll, or Joe sang something. But they got Blag to do Little Red Riding Hood. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Like it's like a
I've
60
never heard
song,
the track.
really creepy. Yeah. Like, hey,
Blag from the Dwarves.
Yeah. It's a total like Blag perfect song. And so I just like, hey, why don't you just like come along? Got to hang out in the studio, like basically outside watching Blag through the window, like do his thing, and so, for me, like like I was like Andy said, I've been around a lot. I was a fan of the band from like the beginning. I remember
Sure.
seeing them like early on in '98, and just that was one of the reasons why. That was one of the motivations for me hooking up, like putting them in touch with the Queers. Was it was just like these guys need a bigger exposure, and I mean. Again, I just love the band. I wanted to do anything, and I kind of viewed it in the sense that like I have this, I got a buddy who can help these guys out, and
Yeah, for sure. And it's like guys from the Riptides who really are just a bunch of local guys playing punk rock, doing what they love. But all of a sudden, Ottawa was on the radar because of the affiliation of the Queers, the Dwarves, and the Riptides. It was kind of a big thing. Like I remember, what year was this around? Like early 2000s. I was just playing shitty fucking pubs, stuff like that. And I figured, this is Ottawa, this is great, but there was so much more happening, and the Riptides were a big part of that, for sure. And you had a great deal, of involvement in that, and that's fucking rad, man. That's a really cool story.
yeah. And I mean, again, like it was the sole motivation was just like I fucking love this band, and I want them to do cool shit.
Yeah.
They're friends of mine. They're always, again, like I'm 4 or 5 years older. No, sorry, 3 years older, because I think they just turned 40 this year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and so it was almost kind of like probably I was that like annoying little brother sometimes, just like you guys are awesome. Especially early on, I got to know them a little bit more, but we really, I didn't really get like close with those guys until, later on. We always knew each other, and we'd hang out and we'd do stuff here and there.
Sure.
And, but again, like it's how they've treated me has never changed. They've just always been the same dudes and solid. And,
No. Well, I can relate to that too, because I've been in the band since February, and you guys, Bob and Andy and Doug and you, have been nothing but welcoming and supportive, and it's been an amazing thing. And if you said they've never changed, well, man, I can relate to even back then, like the way you felt about it coming in, getting to know them and whatnot. So, fuck, man, it's cool. But let's. I don't know if we're jumping ahead at this point, but can we talk about the PG-13s?
yes.
Because I'm super curious about that. You were coming from playing in bands when you were younger, and then doing the more of the crew type of stuff, but still involved in local music. Did a ton, which you've just explained about, but then you got the itch and you said, you know what? It's time to play some music.
Yeah, so basically Cliff's Notes version. I did 2 more full US tours with the Queers, one in 2003, one in 2005. Again, with some pretty awesome bands, The Independents, did a lot of shows with Mad Caddies, got to do like TSOL and Suicide Machines, and a couple shows with like the Vibrators even. But about that, like I was starting to get that itch, like you were saying, where it was like, this is cool and all, getting to travel around, but I kind of felt like I was doing it on someone else's dime.
Mm.
And so
because you were a musician too, because you had played in bands, like you knew, you wanted, like you had every ability to go and start your own band.
At that point, though, I don't know if I knew whether or not I had the ability. Because again, like I'd played in a band briefly when I was like 14 or 15, and like I knew I could like play along to stuff. I knew I had like some kind of I even hate to use the word talent, but some kind of ability.
Sure.
But again, it's, you just never know, right? You can take some guys who are like the most amazing guitar player ever, but then you put them in a band where they have to play with other people, and they just shit the bed, right? Because they have to then it becomes a timing thing. But
so what flipped the script for you? What was it that made you say, you know what, I'm gonna do this. Let's do it.
I just kind of wanted to do it on my own. And again, like I think at that point I had probably been I'd started writing a lot, and so I had some kind of stuff on the go. Like I think I had a decent amount of at least like good song ideas, and I just kind of said like, I just want to do Queers and Screeching Weasel and Ramones type stuff, and even back then in 2005-ish, like that wasn't really easy to find. And so I through Shameless, because he was working at Bumpers at the time doing sound, and one night he came back and he's like, I think I got a guitar player for you, another guy who does sound there, he's into like the same stuff as you. I put him in touch, and so that was Chris Landry, who later became known as The Guy.
Chris Landry?
Yeah.
He's like one of my really, really good friends. Long hair, Chris Landry and the Seasick Mamas?
I'm not sure what he's doing now, but it could very well be.
Yeah, it's totally
We're
the
gonna
same
have
guy.
to check that on the next break.
We may have to reference, this may be a different Chris Landry, but if it's the same Chris Landry, Chris has been on the show like 3 times.
I'm like, my curiosity is piqued. Now if this is the same
6 degrees
guy.
of Chris Landry. Here we
But
go.
I
It's
do
so
know,
funny.
and I do seem to remember there being at least another Chris Landry.
Okay,
When-
we might
when-
be wrong, but
But yeah, no, and so so we met, and that was Sean kind of hooked us up right before I did my last tour in 2005. So we had kind of met and we talked, and we were like, yeah, I totally want to do we want to do something, but like I'm gonna be on the road for the next month, but like when I come back, we're totally gonna like jump into this. And so
okay.
so I came back and we just kind of started working on some stuff, trying to find a drummer, and I don't believe that is
Different Chris
that
Landry.
is
then.
my Chris Landry.
All right, different Chris Landry. Sorry. Carry on.
Hey, honest mistake.
Yep.
And but yeah, so we kind of, I know it was in the fall that I did that tour. I want to say it was probably like October-ish at some point, because that's usually when the Queers went out. But then I think it was like January of 2006, and I honestly cannot remember how. I want to say Chris met Pat. Actually, this is what it was, and it just came back to me. Chris met Pat because he was working sound at a show at Bumpers, and Pat was there, and they just ended up like both outside having a cigarette, and Pat happened to mention that he was a drummer and that he was looking to start a band.
Wait, what did you play in the PG-13s?
I originally played bass in the PG-13s.
Okay.
I did later on play guitar as well, but yeah, so at this point I'm playing bass. So Chris played guitar and did most of the lead vocals. I'd kind of do lead mostly on like covers and stuff like that. And then so Pat, who I think originally Pat Birch, who later became known as Pat PG, and then ultimately Pat Charisma, I think is what is listed on the back of that.
Let's have a look
there.
at the 7-inch.
And yeah, so
Pat Charisma.
Pat
There he is.
was, I think Pat was like 18. He was at Carlton U from Brockville, just kind of starting school.
Look at you.
A little young, unshaven, no beard,
I know, clean shaven.
fatter.
Well, everyone's fatter
Yeah,
when they're younger, I think. Anyway.
But yeah, so Pat was in school, and yeah, oh my god,
shit, eh? Look at that. Sorry, we're looking at the 7-inch of the PG-13s
Which I
that Bull
think-
Tip brought us.
I think came out like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I love it. Fucking, that's cool that you still have some copies to bring to the podcast.
I got a bin of
Didn't
stuff.
sell too well.
I got a bin of stuff sitting in my basement that I just don't know what I'm gonna do with. So I take advantage when I know other people that I'm like, you would probably appreciate this.
Yeah.
So.
So the PG-13s were slowly starting to evolve.
Well, so we met Pat in I think January, we jammed for the first time, and we just hit it off right away, and we kind of set about I wanted to make sure we had a solid like 10-song set, because I had, again, I had done a few tours with the Queers at this point, and I had seen countless local opening bands that were fucking terrible, and that just, not, and I don't mean like, I'm sorry if I come across as being a dick, but just like, just not ready, right? Like, you just need more work. And so I kind of, when I decided that I was going to start a band, that was one of my things, was I was like, we're going to be like tight. By the time we play our first show, like none of it, like, so we set about, and over the next 4 months, at least I want to say 3 days a week, we jam. I was living in the house.
That's a lot of jamming, yeah.
and living in the house in Vanier. We had an unfinished basement, so everything was set up down there. And yeah, whenever we had a chance, we would get together. And so May of that year, we played our first show at the Cock and Lion Pub on Spark Street.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a place where that was going on at that point, where there was a lot of shows. One of our buddies, Ian Norris, was putting on some stuff, and so he gave us our first show. And I remember it being packed. I want to say the Jollies also played on that one, but I'm not 100% sure, because we did play with them like a couple times and other times there as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the Riptides were out. And so we went out and we played, and I remember, I think it was both of them coming over after and saying like, we're going to do something like, so, obviously not a bad start, played our first show. We've already kind of got an offer to do something. And so, so things kind of took off from there. And I mean, the first kind of iteration, because there's 2 phases to the PG-13. So the first phase was about a year. So it was, from that May of 2006 probably until like the summer of 2007. And I think we played it was like 40 to 50 shows. I remember looking back on it and thinking like, man, it basically worked out to like 1 show a week in a year. And we were really lucky that...
All local?
No, we were lucky that we got to do some out of town stuff. Especially, well, the Creeps were always really good to us. The Creeps, I think that first show that we played was opening up for them, and they had been around a little bit at that point, and they kind of took us under their wing. Mm-hmm. So they would bring us on a lot of stuff. I seem to remember, I know we went down to Hamilton and Toronto once, and I think a lot of it was just like they'd get offered stuff and they'd be like, yeah, we'll come, but we're gonna bring the PG-13s with us too. And so we got really lucky to do a lot of that. And then
Nothing, no, I was just
so we were so we got to do like some of that stuff with them. And then I think it was probably that fall, so the fall of 2006, I think maybe, that we did Operation Three-Way. I'm gonna pull it out here and see when this was released. Oh my God, 2004.
The CD that I have to give back because there's like the last one in circulation.
Huh. I think my timeline might be off. This says recorded in 2004. Huh.
Typo?
I don't know. I'm like trying to do a little bit of math in my head now, but that does seem wrong. But I'm not the best with concepts of time. So.
Who is?
Anyways.
What day is it?
So, but yeah. So anyways, to continue kind of after that. So at whatever point we ended up doing, we recorded and it came out as Operation Three-Way. So a split with the Jollies and Sex Head. Andy, that's who you were trying to remember. Sex Head was the third band.
There it is.
But yeah, and so Sex Head was from Montreal, and they were older guys, I think. I don't know if you got the chance. They came out when we were when we played Pooza. They came out and kind of said hi to us before we played. And we were all kind of hanging out by the merch table.
Nah, I was a little distraught that night.
Yeah, so sorry about that.
That's
whatever. Nah. Just shrug that off.
That's all right.
But yeah, and so they were a little older, but they would kind of do stuff like that too, where they would like, we're going to do a show in Montreal, you guys come out and play. So in that year, like we probably played Montreal like 3 or 4 times. We went down to Toronto a couple times. And yeah, it all kind of was going cool. And, all of a sudden, summer of 2007-ish, I think, we're supposed to be opening for the Riptides and the Vapids at Mavericks.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple days out, can't get a hold of the guy.
Okay.
Every day goes by, still can't get a hold of the guy.
Right.
Day of the show shows up, can't get a hold of the guy.
So you had to pull out of that calls. One?
Well, it was one of those we didn't know. So Pat and I were at the show. We had our shit. And yeah, so the guy just never showed up. And that was
The end of the PG-13s?
kind of the end of it. Yeah. Cause I mean, like that's, you know, and looking back on it, I can think that probably like the biggest part was like, I can understand. And I think even then I would have understand if like just call, right? Just be like, hey, I'm gonna spot whatever. I don't care what it is, but like, I can't do it. Like just, you know, do something. But yeah, so that was the end aside from we played like cause it kind of just like went off a cliff, right? So it kind of stopped. So the Queers were coming to town that fall, and we kind of said like we'd like to do like one last show, and
Everyone showed up for that one?
so we did that, and it was fun. It was, you know, with the Queers, which was always like, that was, you know, like Andy talked about meeting Joe Queer was kind of his thing. Like when I started my band, that was like one day, like we're gonna open for the Queers. Like that's kind of, that was my,
Sure.
that was my, and then I'm good, right? And so we did get to do that. And I think at this point, Pat had already started. He was doing double duty. He was with the Riptides as well. And so when the PG-13s went off a cliff, for lack of a better word or term, he kind of kept doing that, and I didn't really have anything. So,
Goddamn.
and actually, now that I think about it, the 2004 timeline's starting to line up a little bit more.
All right.
Just because of what was going on in my life at that point. But yeah, so so the band kind of went the way of the Buffalo,
The Dodo,
and you know, I went through some shit on a personal level. This is, you know, relationship stuff. And
Before you get to that stuff, let's play some PG-13s.
all right, so since it's the first iteration of the PG-13s, this is probably like my favorite song from that era. The title is going to give away what it's about.
Okay.
It's called Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, Jesus.
And basically, like, Nightmare on Elm Street is my favorite horror movie series. And so, yeah. So how this song came about was I bought the Nightmare on Elm Street box set. And, you know, 21, 22, 23, whatever years old, have a lot of time on your hands watching, you know, I'm going to have a binge marathon on a weekend and watch all of them. And it all revolved around the kind of middle breakdown part of the song, which, you know, the 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. And so it kind of started with that idea, and then I kind of built the song around that. And yeah, it's I think it's one of the favorite songs that I've ever written. And again, it's just, I'm a horror movie guy, right? So
All
it's
Let's do it. This is the PG-13s. This is Nightmare on Elm Street. This is Ego and Vice.
Sweater, not got fingernails. Watch, cut me up and roll on my
So Nightmare on Elm Street, that was that was rad. What was next for you?
So after the PG-13s broke up, I couldn't really put anything together. So I started just working on stuff on my own. Jordy, the drummer from the Creeps, was doing some like little recording stuff. Kind of had a little home setup, or had a little setup anyways. So he recorded, I think like 3 songs that I had, two or three originals, and then I did a cover of the Ramones' "I Wanna Be Well." So that'll give you an indication of where my headspace was at that point.
Okay.
And yeah, so we did that. I never really released it, I don't think. The working name for it was Bull Tit and the Other Guys.
What's the origin of Bull Tit?
So Bull Tit I got within the first like 2 days, I think, of the first Queers tour I ever did. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but I asked for help carrying something that I, in hindsight, I guess should have been comfortable carrying on my own. And so Joe coined me as being as useless as tits on a bull.
Bull Tit.
So Bull Tit. And
I like it.
stuck. And it's actually funny because it was, for the first little while, it was always kind of separate. It was like Bull Tit when I was with the Queers, and it was still Jeff to everybody else. But when the Riptides came down and did those shows with us after I went to Europe, and then my buddy Skinner and his buddy are there, well, then Bull Tit's getting thrown around. That was the end of that. Bull Tit officially came back to Ottawa on that. And that's where
you've been ever since.
That's where it's been. And it's had its moments. It kind of ebbed a little bit for a while, but it's back in full force.
That's rad. I love to hear stories like that. Like, where did that come from? Or like band names and stuff like that. It's like,
and then speaking of which, Bull Tit and the Other Guys actually came from Joe Queer. And so funny story about that. So it was when I first told Joe, we were talking, hey, we finally got, keeping him up to date on what was going on with the band. And so like, hey, we finally got a name. It's like, what is it? Like the PG-13s. And Joe's response was, I don't like it. You should just call it Bull Tit and the Other Guys. So I thought that was clever, and I always kind of kept it in the back of my head. And so I did that. And funnily enough, when I put out the stuff and I was talking to Joe again, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. He's like, what are you going to call it? And I was like, Bull Tit and the Other Guys.
Well done, sir.
And his response is, that's a great name. How'd you come up with that? And so I honestly told him that you actually came up with that, Joe. And
just as a weird reference, though, like there's a CD on the wall there. It's called Ohio Jones and the Nobodies.
Yeah.
My handle has been Ohio Jones since I was like 15 years old. Anyway, so in between bands, I recorded that CD where I played everything. I played the drums, I played the bass, I played the guitar, I wrote the songs. It was like the one-man band CD.
Yeah.
I wrote like 9 punk songs, and it was called Ohio Jones and the Nobodies. So that's kind of like Bull Tit and the Other Guys.
It is. That's basically the same. That's
We're
the exact same
spirits,
concept,
man.
You're my spirit animal.
The little Japanese penguin.
But yeah, so I did that, and that kind of, I think by the time I got that finished, like Pat had met this guy named Sean at school. And he played guitar and stuff, and he was kind of like, hey, like, what do you think about like restarting the PG-13s? And so I, obviously wasn't doing much, so I jumped.
How much time had passed?
Probably like about a year, I'd say.
Okay.
Give or take a couple months on either side of that. And so we started playing, and actually now that I think about it, it might not even have been. Yeah, it might have been about a year until we like played our first show after that. So maybe like 6 months or so. But yeah, and so he came in and we all kind of hit it off, and that kind of started the second wave. And so Sean actually carried a lot of the songwriting in the second part, and we kind of went away a little bit from the kind of raw, queer, screeching weasel kind of stuff to a little bit more poppy. So a lot of like 3-part harmonies and stuff, which has always been something that like that gets me. You got good 3 and 4 part harmonies in a song, and I'm hooked. Again, big Beach Boys guy, so obviously, and so yeah, so again, I think we started playing some shows, and we, Pat had a friend who was in school in Toronto, taking like music management. I can't remember the name of the school, but it was like a big music. So they have like a production course and a management course and all that.
Sure.
And so part of their project was like they had to take a band and like record it and do some kind of little CD release kind of thing and put on a show and do all this kind of stuff. And so we kind of had a cool little experience with that. Went down to Toronto and recorded a couple songs. Went down and played a show there, and she actually, and Sasha Gerling, ended up managing us for a little bit, and so just kind of getting shows for us and stuff. And finally, in like 2008, I think, we came across this guy, Greg from Merman Records, who I think approached us and kind of wanted to put out a record for us, and so we did that. So that is the Get Back 7-inch that I brought over.
So
for
the
you
7-inch
earlier.
I have here is the PG 13's
Part 2
V2.
or Part 2
Or
if you
P2.
want to go full hot shots on that one.
Interesting.
So that's kind of, I think that's the last thing that we did too, and I'm like really kind of proud of that. Like that was always something that was really cool for me. That was the first time we had something on vinyl, and as like a musician, I remember like having and being like, my shit is on vinyl. Like, now I am a musician.
I have yet to. I've been playing music for 25 years. I've yet to known that that experience.
It was, I don't know. It's just special. I've always been a vinyl guy though too. But yeah, so it would, but yeah, so it was a little bit different. But after the record came out, we did in the summer of 2009, I believe, went out and did like a West Coast tour. So a couple weeks out to. We didn't make it out to Vancouver because we had some van troubles when we were in Alberta, so we didn't make it as further west than like Nelson, BC. But again, like went out and saw the country. It was generally, sparsely attended shows. Mm-hmm. What ended up being the last show of the tour, like kind of made up for it. We played this like basement show house party in Winnipeg, and it was probably like a room the size of, the room that we're sitting in right now. And just like jammed,
which is huge and laced with gold,
gilded everywhere, gilded everything.
My poodle just ran away.
But yeah, so not a huge space, and it was, it had rained and it was humid, and so it was just like one of those hot, sweaty rooms, but where everybody was having fun and dancing, and so we got home after that, and. Pat had met a girl in Edmonton while we were out there.
Ain't that a bitch?
And within a couple months, he decided that he was going to move out there.
With the girl?
With the girl.
Fuck's sakes.
And yeah, so we didn't have a drummer. And so we brought in Sean Shameless, who is not doing
From
anything.
the Riptides fame.
Yep. So, to keep things nice and incestuous, we brought Sean in, but Sean only ended up staying briefly, played one show, I think, and just timing-wise, it wasn't right. And we ended up finding this dude named Jordan, who I honestly can't remember. I want to say it was like through the Punk Ottawa message board that we
Jordan, the
maybe
drummer?
found him. And so he was, oh my God, I am totally forgetting a key component at this point that I have switched over to guitar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I switched over to guitar.
Started on the bass.
Not long after we reformed and started the second go around, we decided that we wanted to fill out the sound a little bit live, because Sean was like a really, really good, like classically trained musician and really awesome guitar player. And so, when doing solos and stuff, things can sound a little thin. So we decided we wanted to add a second guitar. And so I played both. So I kind of stepped forward and said, well, if we find a guitar player, I'll stay on bass. If we find a bass player, I will switch to guitar. And so
I'm so sorry to cut you off.
No.
I'm not going to.
Are
Please
you gonna ask me
continue
if
your
that is
thought.
Ska Jeff?
Scott Jeff from Targ?
That is Ska Jeff from Targ.
He's
So
in
we
the fuck.
so we got Ska Jeff to Ska Jeff was we asked him to kind of try out, and he was awesome, and he fit in with us, and so I switched over to guitar, and then for the last for most of the second part of the story, Jeff was on bass, and so once Jordan came in, like his first show was we went down and played Insubordination Fest in Baltimore. Greg Merman like put on basically like a Canadian stage, so we went down. The Creeps went down. The Roman Line, who we used to play a lot with in those days, and then like a bunch of other awesome bands went down, and so that was awesome. That was his first show, and then I think we've maybe played a couple other shows, and then it just kind of fizzled out, and people started getting busy with other stuff, or it just wasn't as fun, and so it just kind of dissolved again, and I didn't do anything for a couple years. Like at that point was probably where I really started playing drums a lot. So 2009, I think.
I want to take a really good segment and talk about the evolution into drums. But before we do that, with the end of the PG 13's era, part 2, with Scott Jeff, who I have been trying to, he does this like punk rock cover night.
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna talk about that in the next segment. Actually, it's gonna come up a couple times.
I've talked to Yogi a couple times, and I said I really want to get on the punk rock cover night with Goat, and he's like, "Oh, you got to talk to Scott Jeff about that." So I directly messaged Scott Jeff, and I said I have this idea. I want to do this. He's like, "Yeah, it's pretty good, but call me next week." And I never did. It's my own fault, but whatever. So if I do have some like weird like pull now, or some weird connection, Scott Jeff, come on now.
Come on, man. Help my boy out here.
What do you want to hear off of Get Back? PG-13.
So I brought you two options. One is a little bit more ballady, and one's a little bit more up tempo, if you will.
What was name? Oh yeah, go on.
And so Sasha is the ballady one. That is about our manager, Sasha. But I think what I'm going to go for is the more upbeat song, which is Winona.
All right.
Which, cause it's an upbeat song, but also because the lyrics are very clever and kind of punny, and they're Sean's lyrics. So I'm not being self-serving at all when I say that. But yeah, and it's a really, really solid tune. So,
all right. This is the clever and punny Winona. This is the PG-13s off their 7-inch Get Back. This is Ego and Vice.
Get so tough. Don't worry about what they'll say. I won't let them take you away. What you do to me now in the philosophy of earth? Not the type of girl I can call on the phone. Stars and blips to my harm and good. Visuals from role I play, I would I'll bail you out when things just get so tough. Don't worry about what they'll say. I won't let them take you away. No, sha-na-na-na. Oh, you stole my heart today. No, sha-na-na-na. Girl, I hope they don't put you away. No, sha-na-na-na. Oh, you stole my heart today. No, sha-na-na-na. Girl, I hope they don't put you away now. You know all
So drums. That is a you played guitar, you played bass, and then
Back to guitar.
back to guitar. Okay, well, either way, you somehow started saying like, I might have some rhythm.
Well, I've always kind of wanted to play drums. You know, I was always kind of like, even as like a teenager, like tapping kind of with pens or whatever. And so it just, you know, Pat got a new drum set at one point, and it was just like, well, what are you doing with the old one? Like, will you sell it? Sell it to me? And so obviously, like, he did, and I just kind of dove right in. You know, I basically taught myself how to play by loading a bunch of songs on, at that time, an MP3 player. And pretty much like every day, just coming home from work and playing for like an hour, you know, and really focusing on just like keeping time at first, not like doing the flashy stuff. And like, again, one of the reasons why I also wanted to play drums was because it's just so hard to find good, solid drummers.
Yeah. Any musician you're looking for, like if you put like an ad up, you can put a guitar player up. You probably get about 10 responses. Vocalist, yeah. Bass player, maybe 2. Drummer, yeah. It's hard to find a drummer, man.
And then even when you do get a bite, like a lot of times it's just like, dude just wants to do like crazy stuff but can't keep time. And so, you know, again, like kind of like when it was, you know, when I started the PG-13s, I wanted to make sure. So it was like I kind of just focused on like, you know, learn the basics, keep time, and then kind of just slowly kind of build out from there. And
you're a lefty.
I am.
How'd you figure that out? I guess it just felt right.
I'm left-handed, and even when like as long as I can remember, like I said, even if I was like tapping with pens when I was in high school or whatever, it was the left hand was dominant. And so, you know, and I'd seen people play, you know, cross-handed or, you know, like I can't even think, but you know, either backwards, or some people that they're left-handed that play just play right-handed. And I don't know, it was just comfortable for me, and so I figured, what the hell? It's a little bit of a pain in the ass. I know, like some nights when we're playing a show and we're like sandwiched between two bands,
or under a very low ceiling.
Yeah, which it has to, for it to be, you know, cutting on me, it has to be really low because I'm not a very, very tall guy.
Right, short guys have to improvise.
But yeah, so I dove in and I just would play as often as I could, and just kind of basically did that for a long time. And
were you in a band, or did you like join a band as a drummer? Or
no? So when I first started, I was still been doing the PG-13s, but there wasn't much of an overlap. And then I just really, you know, like I said, just kind of put my head down and spent like probably in hindsight, like at least a year, probably 2, just like playing like along to stuff every day after work. And, you know, at one point I was like, it's be fun now. Maybe I'll try playing. So I jammed with a couple dudes that I met on like the Ottawa Musician, but more just like jazz or like more blues rock kind of stuff. And then that kind of petered out, and then I found an ad from this guy named Kevin, who him and his buddy wanted to start like a you know, kind of first generation punk rock cover band, you know, and you know, the Clash and the Ramones and all that kind of good stuff. And so that seemed kind of like fun, and so I got in touch with them, and then that worked, and we ended up getting a bass player, and then yeah, we just learned a bunch of stuff, and that ended up becoming REO Shitwagon.
No shit.
And yeah, so that lasted a couple of years, but it was mostly just like a fun, like Wednesday night was jam night, and you know, we had a shared room at Capitol Rehearsal Studios, and yeah, so that was you know, we'd go and jam for like 4 hours on a Wednesday night, just play, you know, and you know, you start with like a handful of songs, and man, by the end, I think we had probably like close to 30 songs. And
REO Shitwagon. So what did you guys do? Did you play shows or did you?
we played a couple shows. We played at the Rainbow once. And then we did a couple, we had a couple other shows where we would play like a wide variety of stuff. And then we did a couple punk rock cover nights. So we did one where we did DOA. So we did like The Prisoner, The Enemy, Fuck You, Fucked Up Ronnie, a couple others that I cannot think of right now. And then the second time we did Husker Du Metal Circus from start to finish, which was really fucking fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, but again, like, so most of it for that, you know, we maybe played like 3 or 4 other shows in total in that couple years. And then around then was when Felix was born, and
Your son?
yeah, my son, and you know, some other issues with certain people in the band kind of, you know, made things less fun. And so we kind of all stepped away for a little bit and came back together, you know, maybe like a year later or so. And for a little bit, Kevin wanted to do a little bit more original stuff, so he ended up leaving and starting a new band, like an originals band. I think they're still doing stuff, Cardiff Giant. And so we got another singer, also named Kevin. So that's always easy when you get a new member with the same name. You don't have to learn a new
Yeah,
one.
it's hard. It's hard not to.
But
forget it.
yeah, and I don't think we ever played a show with him though. We just, you know, we jammed again like every Wednesday night. We were kind of looking for stuff, but nothing ever really came up. And you know, at that point I had done couple things with the Riptides. I think like 2012.
Are we getting there?
Yeah. So 2012 was the first thing I did with the Riptides, which was they were doing a video for I Don't Want to Go to the Movies. And
At the Mayfair Theater.
At the Mayfair Theater, and they didn't have a drummer in town. So I'd been hanging out like Rob with like Mel, my wife, and I had been hanging out with Rob and Kim, his wife, and so they just asked, you know, we need a drummer. You want to do it for the video? I'm like, yeah, sure, you know. So
Are you in that video?
I am in that video.
Oh, nice.
And only like I think one little shot playing drums, but I do have an actual part in the walking in and all that kind of stuff. But
Okay.
but yeah, so that was the first thing, and then a couple. I think it was that came out in the fall, and then like the following summer we played a show with Dan Vapid and the Cheats, and like everything was like really sporadic at that point. And that there wasn't anything after that Dan Vapid and the Cheats show until like a year and a half or so later. We opened up for the Queers the last time I think they rolled through town.
You were playing with the Riptides?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my first show, and I think it was actually my
How did that like work out? Like you just like I know you knew them and stuff, but like what was like they said, "Hey, you want to come play drums?" And
Well, after we did the video shoot, and then I guess like the Vapid kind of show was starting to get talked about like a couple months out, and they just kind of, I think Rob said they're just kind of thinking about who do they knew that played drums, and
so they had no drummer at this time.
no. And so they were using, I think, Lumley already at this point on recordings, but they didn't have anybody like when they went out with the Queers. I think at one point they had Adam from the Leftovers, who I think might have also been playing for the Queers on that tour. But you know, Lurch, who was playing for the Queers, played drums for them on some shows when they went down at one point. But yeah, so they didn't have anyone here, and so they asked me if I think they asked if I'd be up to it, and I thought so. And so again, like, you know, I just kind of put my head down and learn the set, and I think it went all right and I think that was like I said, I think that was my first show that I ever played on drums. And I think that now, like looking back on it, that might have been what kind of wet my whistle to get like to start doing the cover band kind of stuff, was just to do something, right?
Sure, yeah,
like, because again, like things were like the Riptides at that point, like Rob, I don't know if Rob, they had their little guy yet, but you know, Andy had at least one of his little girls at that point, and so it was starting to transition into that period where things were kind of very just like something would happen here and there, but not regular, just because there was other obviously obligations.
Yeah, life was happening.
And yeah, so I got into that, and then obviously the Odd Riptides thing would pop up. We did that show with Dan Vapid and the Cheats, and then we opened up for the Queers when they rolled through, and that was like the last thing that I did with the Riptides until like after the new record. So when we played that show with the Queers, we played a couple of the songs that I think they'd only been demoed for the new record.
Canadian Graffiti.
Yeah. Okay. So it was like Get Out of My Get Out of My Dreams, Get Into My TARDIS was one of them. Fuck, I can't think. Anyways, and yeah, so they kind of, I think, finished that record, and they went down and recorded, and they they used Lumley to do which obviously it's funny
because Dan Lumley. Yeah.
Well, and that's funny because people like ask me that all the time, because like, wow, I was like, I'm just the live drummer. Like, it doesn't. Although I'm going to be involved, I think, a little bit more in the next one. I was kind of asked if I'd do that, so so that's cool. But no, like, people always ask me like if it bothered me. It's like, no, like if it was
that you're in the band, and
well,
yet
that
someone
I'd
else
play
is on the record.
Well,
or?
that I'd play live, but I didn't get to do that stuff, and I'd be like, well, no, because like, whatever. First of all, like, it's
how long were you in the band before they recorded the new one, Canadian Graffiti?
Like 3 years, I guess, 3.5 years. But I mean, in those 3.5 years, we recorded a video and played 2 shows. So it wasn't so nothing
it
was
a little sparse at the time. Yeah,
and yeah, and so after that, they recorded that. I was playing with what was now rebranded 24 Hours to Go. So doing the cover band thing, and then that was, once the record was kind of done and stuff started going again, so we started jamming again, and things just kind of, the ball started rolling, and it's just kind of been picking up steam ever since, right? So that was probably like last summer-ish, I think, when we really started jamming again, like on a consistent basis, and getting ready for like the record coming out, and then doing the show at the Dom in December, where we're introduced to the epicness that is the goat.
The goat. Oh, Jesus Christ.
And then kind of since there, we did a couple shows in Kingston and Toronto in January, and here again at House of Targ with the almighty Goat.
The Goat.
In February.
Getting Old and Tired. That is the acronym.
And then, yeah, a little bit of a break and some personnel turnover. We had Tanya, who formerly played in Spy Girl, and
Bella Bombs.
The Bella Bombs playing with us for a bit.
Love the Bella Bombs. Great
yeah,
band.
Same here. I mean, I remember going to Spy Girl, like shows that they put on when I was hanging out with the Unemployed guys in like 97 or 98 at the latest, at the church in Manotick. So yeah, like all those girls were around, from at least from the beginning when I was, the same time I was around. But that just didn't work out, and so we asked you, and of course we had a wonderful time at Zipuza Fest.
Yeah, man. I got the phone call from Andy in February, and like I said to Jeff earlier, maybe on air, off air, I can't remember now. But I've been a fan of the Riptides forever, man. The first time I saw them was like early 2000s at Babylon.
Yep.
And I've told that story on this podcast before, but I'll tell it really quick again to you, where as the Riptides were playing, everyone was like spitting on them, and they would spit on the crowd and shit. And the band that opened they were headlining for was a band called All Systems Go with one of the Doughboys guys.
Yep, the dude with the dreads, right?
Yeah. One of them. I'm not 100% sure, but
I would just like to interject briefly here and say that I don't think I was at this particular show, but at many shows, I was one of those guys who was spitting.
Okay, fair enough.
Particularly
But
spitting beer.
on this particular night, though, Riptides were up. Everyone spit. Yeah, everyone's, it was awful. It was awful. It was an awful scene. But then the all systems go, and the Doughboys guy got up there, and one of the kids in the crowd spit right in his face. And he dropped his guitar and he jumped into the crowd, and there was like this fucking melee. It was bananas. And I was like, I stepped right back, and I was on the wall. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? So I just left.
Yeah, you got to make sure. Not everybody's into that kind of thing.
Yeah. So when Andy called me in February and said, hey, you want to try out for the Riptides? I was like, fucking. I played it cool, though. I did. I was like, yeah, well, we'll see what, I'll take a look at my schedule. But inside, I was like, fucking, you got to be kidding me. So yeah, since I've been out with you guys, or like playing with you guys, it's been a treat for sure. And Pooza was a fucking blast.
Man, that was so much fun.
Yeah.
Including our late night trip to the
La Belle Provence.
La Belle Provence, and the insane amount of food that we scarfed down in record time.
I think Bob or whoever bought 10 hot dogs and a poutine, right?
Yeah, and then you bought 4 pogos.
Then I bought
poutine.
6 corn dogs and another poutine.
6.
And I'm proud to say, except for that lone wiener that hit the ground,
it all went down.
It was gone. There was nothing to pack up. So,
and like I said, in record time, we made that shit disappear.
Yeah. Yes.
Between what, 6, 5?
Well, it was me, you, Bob,
Kim, and Andy.
And yeah, that's it.
That's it. 5.
Yeah, it was disgusting. I woke up and I felt like
I think we all woke up and felt some shame.
Yeah. Cool, man. Let's play a Riptide song. What was the very first Riptide song you ever learned?
I don't know, but I am. I'll give you one of my favorite ones to play, and that is, it's a song that I really kind of get to go nuts on. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna hear "Call Me."
This is a song called "Call Me" by a bunch of bums called the Riptides. Love those guys. Love you guys. This is Ego and Vice.
Call me soon, call me late, call me happy or irate, call me when you want me and I'll come running home. Call me up on the phone when you'd rather not be alone, call me when you want me and I'll come running home. Call me when you want me and I'll come running home. Call me soon, call me late, call me happy or irate, call me when you want me and I'll come running home. Call me up on the phone when you'd rather not be alone, call me when you want me and I'll come running home. Call me when you want me and I'll come running home. Call me when you want me and I'll come running home. Call me when you want me and I'll come running home.
Oh, the Riptides. What a fucking treat.
I hear that song like every day. I still play. I still play the set pretty much every day. Mm-hmm. I'm maybe a little obsessive compulsive.
Well, you gotta put the work in. I get that too. And like when they send me stuff and I knew like stuff's coming up, I just sit at home and I just play and play and play and play. The night before the Pooza show, when we were in Montreal, everyone was out at the bar. I think you guys were in the outdoor stage. Andy was at the bar setting up the merch. I stayed at the hotel, and I put my earplugs in, or my earplugs. I should have put my earplugs in. My earphones in, and I listened to the set because I made a playlist on Spotify, and I just sat there and I air guitared it. Just trying to remember, right? It was my first show. Shit, I was freaking out.
You did good.
Thanks, dude.
You done real good.
So I'm happy to be in the Riptides. I'm happy that you were in the Riptides with me, and I hope we have tons of fucking more awesome shows. I know we have tons on the go.
We got a couple things coming up. So Rip Fest weekend.
Yeah, Rip Fest.
June 29th in Montreal, and then June 30th here. Was it Ask a Punk?
Yeah. I can't remember where we are in Montreal, but that is June 29th.
I think it's Trackside.
Trackside, that's right.
It seems to be.
Yeah. So all the Montreal listeners, I know you, Nico, Lee, and I think Nick's listening, man. Go to Trackside on June 29th and see Rip Fest. It is a stopover with the Riptides, the Rip Chords, and I'm not sure who else is on the bill. I apologize, but I will make it up to you next time.
But on the 30th, back here, we have Wayfair on the bill, who were
Warfare,
on...
motherfucker.
Or Warfare. Man.
Yeah, it's going to be fucking awesome. Goat just played with Warfare last Saturday, and those guys fucking... The energy that those guys, like, it's like a high-octane energy. It's awesome. It's a great show. And that is with Warfare, Rip Chords, Rip Tides.
Is there a fourth on that one?
I don't think so. I think it's just the three. And that is at a secret location, so ask a punk, my friends.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing those guys. So
yeah, man, it's gonna be great.
I mean, the Rip Chords too.
Oh,
and
shit,
I'm
yeah,
also
man.
excited to play, but I'm excited to see.
I'd love to see Paul Gott again. Here's a funny story about me and Paul Gott of the Rip Chords. I always tell the story of how my second show was at Crocs and Rolls in Thunder Bay with Furnace Face with Slow Tom, who's been on the show, and we talked about that and we reminisced about it. But my very, 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 very first show ever in a band, I was in a band called I Refuse. We were a shitty Bad Religion kind of cover band. And my very first show was at Crocs and Rolls on September in 1991. I'm a details guy now. Look at me.
Hey, rubbing off
And
on
we
you.
opened for the Rip Chords. 1992. 1992. Yes.
Man.
So yeah, I'm old as balls.
And they're still out killing it.
And I'm going to talk to Paul about that. I'm going to talk to Paul Gott about that. I'm going to say, hey, man, you remember this show? He's going to say, absolutely not.
I think you might be surprised.
Yeah. Man, you know how many shows I've played in my day? Anyway. So yeah, cool, man. What I normally do on Ego and Vice, or what I always do on Ego and Vice, is I have a segment called the Rapid Question Period.
Yes.
Mr. Bulltet, would you like to participate in the rapid questions?
I would love to.
All right, let's do it.
Questions and answers, honesty lies. Yes, no, you can't, but you can and you know why.
Shit, you must be fucking, man. Like, what's he talking about? Any questions?
Okay, this is the Rapid Question Period with Mr. Bulltet. Woo! Here we go. I'm going to go down. I have a list of 30 questions that normally I ask, and I asked Jeff off air to pick 10 random numbers, and I just kind of check them off. So I'm going to go from the start to the bottom.
All right, let's
Is that
do
cool?
this.
Here it is. What is your biggest musical influence?
Man. Ooh, that's a tough one, but I'm going to go and say the Beatles.
Beatles.
I don't know if they're necessarily my biggest influence or just my favorite band, but I think because they're my favorite band, they're my biggest influence.
Awesome.
And I mean, you know, okay, sorry to like the Beach Boys and the Ramones and the Queers and Screeching Weasel and kind of all those, but yeah, sorry.
The Beatles. Next question of your choosing out of the 30. Last record you bought with your own money.
The last record I bought with my own money was the Creeps' new record. I believe it's called Beyond the Pines. At their record release show about a month ago, maybe.
Was that on Richmond? Or
Yeah.
Wellington?
Yeah, Wellington, I
Yeah.
think. I can't remember the name of the...
Cool. Bob put some live
Yeah.
Facebook or something. Yeah, that looked cool, man. I like the Creeps. I've played the Creeps on the show before. Yeah, they're a good band. Great band. Iconic band. They've been around forever.
Forever.
All right. Next question. What is the song you want played at your funeral?
Oh, man. Man, I have no idea. I mean, like, something popped into my head, probably because I heard it on the way over. I was listening to a little Elton John, so The Candle in the Wind.
No shit. All right. No,
But like, updated lyrics. Like,
no takesy backsies.
but, like, there's a bull tit lyric adapt. Like, you know how he changed it when Lady Di died? So he made it about her.
Goodbye, British Rose.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Like, but like,
And I love Marilyn Monroe. I love her.
yeah, like that, but about me.
Okay, cool. Let's never speak of this again. Question number 4. Who is your death row person? The person you'd want to be in the cell with you before they walked you to the chair. It could be anybody. It could be personal. It could be like anybody, living or dead.
Man, I'm just like trying to think of like who could get me out of that.
Johnny Cochran.
Could I have like the Terminator? Is that a person?
No, that's fair.
Does that work?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Because like Terminator 2, Arnold.
I'll be back. Yeah, he'll blow you. He'll blow you out the side of the prison. That's a good answer, actually.
Because then whoever else I would like want it to be for sentimental, I could just go see them.
I respect that answer, and I'm going to take it as a legitimate answer. All right.
Pick it outside the box.
Question number 5. Favorite movie?
Oh, The Exorcist.
Exorcist.
Exorcist / Apocalypse Now. Exorcist is my favorite horror movie. Anything non-horror, Apocalypse Now.
Apocalypse Now. Cool. Question number 6. Your favorite book?
Man, my favorite book, because it's like the book that changed. It was like we were talking off air about the book that I kind of read at a good time or reread at a perfect time where it had a big impact on me. It's called Extreme Ownership. It's by a former Navy SEAL named Jocko Willink. It's about owning your shit, man. And yeah, like I said, I read it. I've read it a couple times, but the most recent time was at a very important kind of point, crossroads, if you will. And so
That's fair.
So I'll go with that.
All right. We will go with question number 7. And trust me, these were picked randomly by Jeff himself.
And I have no prior knowledge of these. By the
You
way.
don't. Okay.
I can just drone on about anything.
What is your death row sex position? If you could have sex for like 10 minutes, how would you want to do it right before they fucking fried you?
I think I would just be happy if it was like not with a dude. I think anything that like if it was as long as it was a little lady.
Well, you are in prison, so you never know, right?
So like,
No, so
I would take like.
Here comes everybody.
I would take, doggy style kind of guy, I guess.
Yeah, all right.
Probably,
I'm thinking that's gonna be like
the default kind of answer,
the top answer. But
There's some bars to grab onto,
I also respect that position. All right, I mean that question. Question number 8. iPhone or Samsung?
iPhone. Again, for reasons that we discussed off the podcast, I am not the most up to date with a lot of the fancy stuff, and I'm just so used to an iPhone that it's gonna take something big to make me change.
Okay, question number 9. Have you ever broken a bone?
No, never.
Well, okay.
Not a single one.
And the final question number 10, picked at random. If tomorrow was the last day of your life, what would you do?
I would definitely go train some jiu-jitsu and get one last roll in, and hopefully I could line up like a last band practice with you and the rest of the Riptides.
Oh,
and close it out with my wife and my little guy. So, ride off into the sunset.
all right. That's a fucking wonderful, wonderful scenario.
That was 10 questions?
That was 10.
Damn.
All right. Cool, man. That was rapid questions with Bull Tit. Okay, let's take a little bit of time to plug some of the stuff that you're doing. I know you do a podcast because you're very involved in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, so I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, train at the Ottawa Academy of Martial Arts, and yeah, so I do a podcast just kind of about the basic kind of goings-on, what's going on. We have a bunch of different competitors and all this kind of stuff going on. We have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, we have kids programs, so MMA, mixed martial arts. So yeah, it's just kind of about the goings-on that of what our people are up to. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, you can check it out. It's the OAMA podcast. It's available on iTunes. And yeah, other than that, just we're going to have like we mentioned earlier, we have a few things coming up, Riptides wise. So on the 29th and 30th, Montreal and Ottawa, Rip Fest. And then I think in like September, we're going down to Toronto, and there's some other things in the works.
Bovine Sex maybe that's the Toronto one, Bovine Sex Club.
Yeah, Bovine Sex Club in September, and then some other potential things that could be really, really awesome that are being worked on and hopefully pan out. So, but yeah, no, other than that, just, thanks, dude, for having me. Like I've been listening, and I really enjoy the podcast, and I am honored to have been asked to be here. I hope I didn't bore everybody too much with my long-winded responses.
No, man, it was a pleasure to have you. It was an honor to have you. Since I've been playing with you, like I said, it's been great, and it was nice to sit down here and shoot the shit and get to know each other a little bit better, And yeah, man, lots of cool Riptide stuff coming up. There's a tour in November that we're not going to really announce right now. We just want to say that it's coming up. And other than that, we should jam soon because it's been a while.
Sunday. I can't wait for Sunday.
Yeah, me too. Make some noise.
Yeah.
Okay. So this has been Ego and Vice, and we're going to end off on a song. Anything you want to hear? Anything at all?
Okay, well, since we haven't touched it yet, we definitely have to go Ramones. And as a nod to my former band, we will go with I Wanna Be Sedated.
Oh, shit. I'm really going to get sued now. Okay. Jeff has been in the studio. This is Bolt It. Super happy to have you.
Thanks again, man.
And this is the Ramones. I Want to Be Sedated. If you want to get a hold of me, you can reach out to egoandvice@gmail.com. If you want to listen to the podcasts, you can go to egoandvice.com. They're all up there for free. I can also be found on Facebook, iTunes, Google Play, Podomatic, and anywhere you can find like cool shit. So I apologize. This is a long motherfucker, but man, the guy's got a story to tell, so he's going to tell that story. This has been Ego and Vice, episode 37. My name is Mike, and I will see you later.
You've got a real attitude problem, McFly. You're a slacker.